everybody. Welcome to this week's AMA. We're here with QX and Marty.
Hey, guys.
How you doing?
Me, I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
Hanging in there, fighting off some sicknesses, but I think we all are from the sound of our voices. So we'll be miserable together. Fantastic.
Yes, not those kids. That time of year, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, what's new with you, Joe?
Oh, what's new with me? I've been preparing for rolling out Rosen. That's probably the biggest thing on my side. Distributed coordination, getting the cold wallet set up at the moment, making sure the supported tokens are there. Then we're going to release some watcher tutorials, right? Hopefully at that point we can get some community feedback, education, future tutorials, and see that part of the network spin up. Exciting times.
For those of you that don't know, SIGs are a guard for those watching, and to be part of this process, to watch it spin up and watch everything that's involved and watch the coordination that's involved every step of the way with wallet creations and getting private keys for things and spinning up Docker images is absolutely it's amazing that it's going the way it is with how many people are being guards here and the joint effort that needs to be going on. So it's really cool to be part of that. So we appreciate Rosen Bridge allowing the SIGs to be guards right in the beginning here. It's really cool.
Yeah, we've been working with them too. ErgoPad is going to be one of the guards as well. So it's been an interesting process. It's really well organized considering how many people need to make synced up multi-sig wallets. So it's been interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what did who was it? Was Louis Vatra said at one point, the security of a multi-sig wallet is sometimes it's even hard to just get something out when you have everything aligned anyway, something like that, which was pretty truthful to that matter. What's up with you, Marty? What's up with ErgoPad, Paideia, Corecta? Did I miss one?
Crux,
yeah. Okay, there we go.
We've been busy, man. We just we're doing the Corecta token sale right now, and that wraps in a couple hours here, actually. And then we've been trying to push out the MVP for Crux. We want to get accounting done actually by the end of the year, so everyone can do their taxes. So Louis finished an API for that one, and it's quite extensive because you got, with the wrap tokens, you got duck pools tokens, you've got your liquidity tokens on Spectrum, but then you've also got staked liquidity in the yield farm, and it just kind of stacks on top of stacks. And then what we're doing is like your cost basis and sort of like when you bought the tokens, what your average cost basis is, what your profit and loss is for like the day, the year. All these things kind of become really complicated when everyone has different standards for how they wrap tokens and everything. So Louis been working really hard on that one, and we'll have it pushed out pretty soon here. So yeah, it's been an interesting month, that's for sure.
Yeah. You guys are doing awesome with Crux.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And we've also been working on Paideia in the background, pushing out the UX updates and just trying to get it easy to use. I don't know if you guys have used the beta yet, but
well, how's that going? How's the testing going? You getting good feedback from that?
We're getting fantastic feedback, and a lot of people are using GitHub issues and bringing reporting the bugs and making suggestions on how we can improve the user experience. So that's been going great. I think we're on schedule. We plan to release sometime in January, February, the full version. So we're just updating the create a DAO section, because right now there's just the Paideia DAO. So we'd like to let people test creating their own DAOs. So that's coming up soon, and I'm sure a lot of people are excited to try that out. And then we're just testing the platform. We need to, there's certain things we need to update, like people can curse as much as they want, and make the names include anything they want. So I think we need to set some filters for that. But yeah, it's been interesting. Lots to do though. Still, it's a kind of a huge project.
You're saying we won't be able to curse on the full version of Paideia once it's up?
You'll have to spin up your own version if you want to have a fully uncensored experience.
Gotcha.
Just, I don't want to host certain things on our own website. You know, I'm not so worried about swearing now and then. I'm more worried about, various other things. So we want to allow DAOs to moderate their own comment section, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Looks like we lost Joe on video, so it's just me showing on the screen until Andy fixes that. But oh, there we go. He's splitting us back up again. Joe, you rugged the video. You are so good at rugging shit.
Zoom hates me. Zoom hates me every time I end up rugging this thing. Sorry, everyone.
Oh goodness. So what's Joe, can you speak for people? Because there was a question out on chats the other day about the complexity of what the watchers would look like for somebody that wanted to run it, and the barrier of entry for people that wanted to do it, and the idea that if it could be more simple, then you could get a lot more people, staking their Rosen to be able to get a token to be able to run a watcher.
Sure. Well, let's start with the basics, right? There's hardware requirements. If you're going to be a watcher, what you're doing is you're looking for outgoing transactions on a specific chain, right? So that means like if I'm going to be watching Ergo, I'm going to be looking at tokens or coins that are leaving the Ergo network, right? That way, basically I'm watching the guard wallet in simple terms. Now, if I'm going to be running, let's say on the Cardano side, again, there's hardware requirements, right? I've got to be watching that chain. Same thing, I'm watching kind of like the inbound, which is the outgoing transactions. So, as Rosen scales, you're going to have multiple watcher sets that are watching different, blockchains, different ecosystems, right? And it's one of those things where when you look at it from like the hardware requirement, there's always going to be some friction there, but there should be, in my opinion, right? It's kind of like if you're running a more robust node, I guess, you simply need, the hardware requirement to do that, right? And Rosen's is not specifically like that heavy relative to most nodes in the space, but it is going to require some computational power, right? Then there's this idea of simple resistance, right? And basically what that means is you want to create some cost burden so that someone can, in essence, be multiple actors for free, right? So being a watcher requires collateral, right? And what that means is that if I want 2 watchers, the cost of that scales. And that's ultimately a good property to have, otherwise, what's to stop me from, having 10 watchers, 50 watchers, right? There needs to be some cost burden that makes it expensive to do so, right? It's not necessarily an economic penalty because the collateral itself is fully redeemable, but it does create a barrier there. So I do think that in time we probably will see, I would assume like watcher packages that are Dockerized to where, people will be able to, run multiple watchers at, let's say in parallel. And that's fine. It'll just require the collateral to do so. But, sometimes people forget, I don't know. It's a crypto thing in my opinion, right? It's like proof of work is bad because it takes work, and it's like, yeah, but the work's kind of the point, right? You're adding energy to the chain. Sometimes people do not want to be a peer in peer-to-peer networks. They want like as little effort and energy as possible, which is a positive thing from like the user experience side of things, right? We could always improve it, make it, let's say, easier, have better educational materials, tutorials, that kind of thing. But, sometimes people want something for nothing. And that's not going to operate very well. It's going to require some computational requirements, some collateral. And then there's also this idea of strategy, because, Rosen is somewhat similar to like how miners can add transactions, from the mempool and pull it into blocks, right? Where if I have like this ability to report a transaction, maybe I'm going to have a strategy, for that. There might be a race for larger transactions because there's bigger economic payout potentially on the fee side. Some people may want to say, I'm just going to go for what is less popular and, try to get paid more often and kind of put my permit to work more. It'll be interesting to see. I'm not exactly sure, how different strategies will develop, but I assume that they will.
Yeah, on top of that, too, for people not on the technical side, I think people tend to forget that you can still leverage your funds, your tokens, with somebody that is technical. You could partner up, or perhaps there would be somebody offering to say, technical-wise, it doesn't have the money for a guard or the money for a watcher, that would offer to run the hardware for you and split it at that point. So people shouldn't rule that kind of stuff out with those kind of collaborations.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, you could have a project that, bribes watchers and says, hey, if you see my token coming to the wallet, I want you to, confirm it as fast as possible, and I'll give you a little tip or something. Like, there's a lot of, like, market forces at play that could develop over time. Let's see.
Cool. Should we hit questions?
Yeah, let's get to it.
Wait, who's running questions? Is that you, Joe?
Oh, yeah, that is me, actually. Hopefully I don't
we'll sit back and wait.
My favorite one. Let me go to question to Marty, Win Paideia.
Oh, how dare you, Louis. Actually, we are targeting sort of like an end of January, sometime February, for the main release, but that could change. It would be better to have closer to finished product than to rush delivery of the product, I think. And of course, part of the reason that we're taking this long is because we want to see if the platform breaks, and then we can patch it before you guys put your money on it. When you use Paideia, you have to put the treasury into the smart contracts that we built, in order for the platform to really make any sense, unless you're just using it for like basic voting. But in order to use those smart contracts and trust them with your treasury, it's better if we give it a little bit of time to find some of the bugs, the potential bugs. I mean, when you're designing brand new smart contracts in a system that, I don't know if anyone's really done DAO management in the way we have. I know nobody has on Ergo, so there's only so much you can really like simulate and account for without actually seeing it on chain. So it'll be good to have a little bit of a longer period where we just properly test it before we start trusting it with anyone's money. So even if we do release January, February, I caution people to start slow. Don't drop your entire treasury on there right off the bat.
Good feedback. All right, looks like next is from Rico Staines. When Bitmain Ergo Miner. I don't know, QX, you have any updates for us from the Bitmain side?
Who's Bitmain?
Yeah, no, it's I hope we never see Ergo Bitmain Miner. Personally, I'm a big fan of ASIC resistance. And that's something that I think that every GPU chain needs to be somewhat cautious of, right? The ASIC manufacturers in this space work every day to capture market share, right? They have their R&D departments. Luckily, right now, I don't think they have the manufacturing capacity to make like a pure auto Lithos V2 ASIC. I think it's doable on a FPGA, but at this point, I don't think it's within Bitmain's wheelhouse to do so. But I think it's something that if chains are serious about remaining GPU friendly, ASIC resistant, that takes perpetual work, in my opinion. That's not something that you can just set once and forget, because you're basically choosing to be a mouse, right? And the cat's always coming, right? It is within Bitmain's desire to capture as much of the mining market as they can. And so, personally, I'm a fan of having, ongoing R&D continuously for, potential changes, whether it's the mining algorithm itself, the difficulty adjustment algorithm, and, having plan B, right? Because if you're going to choose to be the mouse, you need to have plan B from time to time. We've seen that in multiple chains. Monero is a good example where periodically it's had to fork, and because they're like, hey, we want to try to remain on the CPU, right? So I do think that long term, that's a strategy that hopefully GPU miners out there care about. I sometimes really wonder, looking in this space, but that's a side topic that's not worth going down, in my opinion.
We what's it called? In the Sig chat, with our Sig Mining pool, the over intent of that was to educate miners and group them together so that they would actually care and move these kind of things forward and pay attention to this. And a really interesting thing happened last week. One of the Sig members was very interested in the difficulty adjustment that occurred in EIP 37 during the ETH merge. So they wanted some more data with that. So we're actually diving hard into that kind of thing. It took over the Sig Mining channel specifically for that. And there's been a lot of data thrown out there about what it looked like, what it looks like now, what was it, a 5 terahash or 2 terahash rig that keeps jumping off and on looks like, how that's affecting price, the differences between price and difficulty. All that data is flying across in the Sig Mining chat that we're looking at right now to see if we can make some tests. MGPy has a duplicate of mainnet fired up on testnet. We're going to see if we can start mining that with some of our spare GPUs, and then we're going to start throwing test scenarios at it where a large hash rate jumps off and on, and go from there, just so we can kind of have a controlled environment to see what we can do and see if there can be any performance improvements. So that's a group like that's exactly what I would love to see be on the forefront of, if ASIC Minings or Bitmain starts developing something for Ergo, then this group would hopefully, know that and do what they need to do to keep GPU mining in the business here.
Yeah, it's something that, you need to have plan B there, because, if an ASIC comes out, let's say in theory, depending on the efficiency of it, GPU miners have a limited window, get their shit together if they're going to try to, turn the train, right? That's not something that really has a long time horizon. Hopefully we don't get there. And then there's also other interesting questions longer term, right? What's hardware going to look like in 5 years, right? That's really hard to say, in my opinion. Depending on how, technology evolves, every once in a while, there's new standards. So it's, if you're going to try to say, okay, we're going to stay with general purpose hardware, just that in and of itself, it's going to be, its own challenge depending on how general purpose hardware evolves. So that's something that if we're going to be the cat, or the mouse, so to speak, which I'm a fan of, I think ASIC resistance is powerful. I think, offering the capacity for, hobbyist home miners to contribute and support the network in a meaningful way is a lot more democratic than saying, okay, well, you can go to like 1 or 2 companies and, buy some specialty circuit, and, it's just a lot more open, democratic, and, I would say resistant to manipulation. But
You don't want to centralize the supply chains either.
Exactly. There's already a ton of consumer grade hardware in the broader market, and I've known a couple of miners that even though they don't necessarily have the most competitive power costs, what they do is they recycle. They're pulling apart different computers and pulling out GPUs, plugging them in, and having fun. Oh wow.
Joe's about to rug us again.
Uh-oh.
That's the ASIC miners coming for him.
There we go. Yeah. well, that's stabilizing. Oh, we forgot to mention that Ergo Hack 7 results came out. The final judge finally got their shit together last night and sent in their results. So it looks like first place was Analog Atomic Swap Market. Second place was HODLBox. Third place was Ergo Poor Man's Wallet. And special prize goes to the MetaMask integration. Marty, you been following that at all? You been following any of the submissions for Ergo Hack?
Unfortunately, I didn't have much free time this month to check it out. So yeah, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. So Atomic Swap's fantastic. It's going to be trustless kind of cross-chain swapping, which is 100% needed in an ecosystem like Ergo. It's been working on for quite a while by, I believe it's Death Gripson. Fantastic tool. Can't wait to see it in the wild. HODLBox, I don't think needs an explanation. That's been out in the news here for quite a while. Ergo Poor Man's Wallet, for those of you that didn't look at Ergo Hack, really damn cool. So I believe for $10, Nishta, I think, or Nishta, is that how you pronounce it, Joe? Nishta? Nitram. Nitram developed this using parts and little boards you can get from like the sites over in Asia for very cheap. It created a hardware wallet that you can USB into your PC and have a little OLED screen to display some things, all for $10. So absolutely super cool that the barrier of entry for something like a hardware wallet is something you can, a hobbyist, follow those instructions, put together yourself, and go from there, as opposed to paying, $50, $75 for a ledger device. You could make it yourself where all the trust lies with you, which is pretty neat. And then we all,
ledger,
yeah. And then the of course the special prize for MetaMask integration was super cool. That was right, Captain Nemo's team, I believe, to do that. So there's a little video out there on his recent Twitter post that you can see. So congrats to all those winners. Absolutely fantastic there. Super exciting.
So you can use Ergo on MetaMask now?
Well, in the builds they're working on, correct. And I believe he also did something with MetaMask that makes it so that you can spend, or maybe it was Nautilus. I thought it was MetaMask and Nautilus combined or something, where you can spend funds in the mempool as well. So essentially, you can chain transaction things that come into your wallet, which is pretty neat. I know that's probably not something you're gonna use for a DEX or that Spectrum would allow, but it's pretty neat. Did we lose Joe? Andy?
I think my audio is still in my video.
Oh, you're still here. Perfect. That's great. All right, what's the next question there, Joe?
All right, so looks like the next question is going to be when Rosen. I will say 2 weeks. No, I think we're within the 2 week time frame, right? Depends on the guards at this point. How that's coordinated in terms of the cold wallets. Multi-sigs are doing well, so I think we're doing pretty good in terms of our launch. I think MHS said he's shooting for 1 week now, so let's just say 1 week instead of 2.
Can I quickly answer a question here I saw?
Sure. Which one?
Augustus Kent asked, could Rosen and Paideia be used in conjunction?
Yeah, I hope so. Rosen's going to require a lot of management, actually, from the guards. Where you need that type of governance tool. That's actually quite a powerful thing for Rosen itself. So I'd certainly push for it. It's one of those things. I know that we're still moving towards, kind of the Win Paideia. But once we get there, certainly, I think that type of robust management tool is a powerful thing, and I would hope that every application that's serious moves in that direction to where you get transparency and kind of on-chain assumptions in terms of management. It's just like the Discord DAO stuff.
Yeah, and also you can use Rosen Bridge to, like, if you had a token on another chain, you could use Rosen Bridge to wrap your token on Ergo and then use Paideia with your token.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just another step. If somebody had a Cardano token, they could wrap it on Ergo, but then keep their tokenomics the same and have everyone wrap to use their DAO. And then if they wanted to sell, they just have to unwrap back to Cardano and sell their token. But yeah, 100% that's possible. That would be an interesting emergent feature of Paideia.
All right, let's see. What do we have next? All right, next one. If I had to guess roughly when Rosen would be up and running fully, are we talking 12 months, 6 months, or weeks? So I'll let the two of you answer that. You're both privy. You're in the guard side.
Well,
passing the buck.
We have to decide what to call the tokens first.
Yeah. There's
a huge conversation.
That is very interesting. Yeah. For those of you that are wondering what we're talking about, there's the option of what a token looks like when it's wrapped. Some suggestions were that it should just be indicated that it's part of the Rosen Bridge and then the token name. Others said, depending on if there are stable coins involved, it could get messy. So you might want some indication that it's part of the bridge, the token name, and the network that it came from, or the network that it's on right now. And then, yeah, lots of fun discussions actually going on in that chat. Even currently, I haven't checked out this morning, but some really interesting ideas. When you think that, oh yeah, that sounds like a decent idea, one of the other 10 or so guards in there pops in and says, oh yeah, but this and this, something you don't think of. So really, really nifty. Marty, what's your opinion on how those should be labeled cross-chain wraps? You're muted. You're muted, buddy.
Whoops. Me personally, I think we should stick to convention and stick to something like R ETH or RS ETH, similar to how there's like W ETH or other wrapped tokens have just sort of that 1 or 2 letters as a prefix. But then some of the guys were saying they want more information, so it'd be like, what was one of them? RSN .ada.ergo, and the third row would be sort of the network it's on, and the second row would be the name of the token, and it'd be prefixed with like RSN or something. So I don't know, how would that look if you're trading and you're scrolling through a DEX and all the names are super long like that? I don't know if that would work. Although I do understand the suggestion to have more information for people. So
yeah, at some point, you have to rely on the wallets. Like we took a look at some of the multi-network wallets as well as the central exchanges, and they do a pretty good job of saying that this would be RSN ADA, and then above it would show that it's on the Ergo blockchain, essentially. So you'd see it visually there, but then that's of course relying on those entities to do that, which is okay. Oh, Joe's trying to video back again. Let's see if this is.
It changes every time he does it. It changes the.
I know. I hope nobody's high watching this because they're gonna be freaked out. Andy just gave up. Andy's like, whatever, we'll just leave Joe with infinity recursions going up. I'm going to say Rosen's going to be available in, if we had to guess. You said a week, Joe? Is that what you said?
I'm hoping a week. I think I'm going to say 1 week instead of 2 weeks now.
I'll say a week and a half. We still got to get those watchers in play.
Yeah, that's true. The watchers. It depends on how quickly they set up.
Yeah. We still got to make sure that all the guards know how to sign a multi-sig wallet too. So far, everybody's generated the keys successfully. That's fantastic. So I think everybody's more than capable. So I don't expect any errors or issues there. All right, what do we got for another question, Joe?
Let's say, do you think Bitcoin would reach 100K this bull market? Well, my professional financial advice is going to be that it's going to move to the right and it's going to move in a jagged straight.
Classic Joe.
Bitcoin's so 2013, man.
Yeah. Armenio, when will Ergo get listed on new exchanges? That's usually up to them, right? We're continuously in contact with them. Depends on what the ask is, right? It's usually not something that's done as a public service. It's just the money. So ongoing discussions right now. Even I know Dan's talking with a few in the US. So let's see how negotiations proceed there. Obviously, with like the latest Binance drama, I guess it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out long term, right? There's
what if you spent, what if you had spent like $250,000 on Binance?
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, it's like the US, they're out of the US, There's so many risks also, like with the asks that these exchanges have, and then the fact that they barely can stick around. I mean, every day there's a new SEC.
They're a liability. I mean, in my opinion, like if you look at it from a treasury perspective, unless there's a good deal, they're a liability. And
you have to be careful.
People can disagree with that, but also I can point to, FTX, I can point to Binance, and I can point to ongoing discussions that, what's happening in the back end where, if we would have paid, project would be in trouble, right? So I think conservative approach is best here, especially when you're talking about funds that are used for, core infrastructure development, critical parts of the system. So, I'm not a fan of kind of the modern scheme where projects are very beholden to exchanges. I think a lot of them have some sketchy things going on, and let's see. That's my opinion. If so, they get in trouble. I'm not going to shed a tear for them. All right. Let's see. Is Rosen Bridge going to launch with a centralized exchange integrated with it? No. Let me reload the questions. My own.
It's showing up.
Okay, good. All right. Next is for Marty. I'm here to support you, Marty. By the way, is it possible for Corecta ErgoPad to bring Tabby POS to Cardano without harming the interests of Ergo POS holders?
I think that would depend on how the tokenomics are organized. It's always possible, but you have to consider, if you dilute current investors, are you going to reduce the value of their investment? So if the Tabby POS team is interested in having that discussion, I'm always open to it. They've been showing, that they're a strong team. I mean, I appreciate their frequent updates, and it looks like they're quite close to going to market. So, it'll be interesting to see. I think it would be good to have them support multiple chains, definitely, if not, as many as possible. So if we can do it without a negative impact on current investors, I think that's a good thing. So we're open to it.
That'd be interesting to watch. That's very interesting because Tabby POS is already fully out on Ergo to see. There's also other tools, Lee. For those of you who don't know, Lee is Tabby POS essentially. There's the auction coin protocol. That's a really, really neat way to launch. I'm not speaking against ErgoPad or Paideia, Marty. Fantastic tools, but auction coin protocol is absolutely fantastic for that kind of thing and would work essentially if it were ported over to the Cardano ecosystem somehow. Whereas you let the buyers and the community kind of decide the price and determine the price based on what they bid on the token and then what they swap it on the exchange for and build that up. So it's very, very organic growth there that could really cut out the watering down of the Ergo side with arbitrage back and forth by releasing that at Cardano. So that'd be interesting. But either way, if Tabby POS works with you guys, Marty, that'll be fun to watch to see how you guys solve that issue.
Right. Let's see. What do we have next? Question for Joe. Could you speak on the Catalyst proposal onboarding Ethereum and EVM ecosystems to Cardano via Rosen Bridge? Sure. So if you look at what Rosen Bridge is for, like net intent, what does it do? It opens external markets, right? And so I'm pretty aware of the exchange costs. And the reality is, even if you look at most Cardano like native tokens, they experience the same friction, same costs in terms of getting listed on market, right? If you look at the projects there, the large tokens, not many of them have major exchange exposure. Part of the reason why is because there's an economic burden there. Now, one thing that Rosen does, and essentially part of its design, is it's designed to open market access for projects. People will oftentimes ask, well, what do you think about like Thorchain as an example? And Thorchain is pretty useful if you're a user wanting to swap a major coin, basically. But if you're building something, if you're a smaller project and you're trying to access external liquidity, there's a lot of friction required. I know Marty will have some insight because he's talked to different exchanges about their requirements, how much they would charge, the legal aspects of it, etc. That's a heavy burden, right? And so if you expect projects or ecosystems themselves to just continuously get taxed by that market costs, it's very difficult to grow. So Rosen is kind of the Ergo Hack version of, we can move assets in a way that has clear assumptions, right? Which most exchanges don't even have clear assumptions. You don't know how it works under the hood. You don't know what their security parameters are going to be like. You don't know what their multi-sig distribution is going to look like. You just hope that it works, and you don't, wake up one day and say, "Oh, it got hacked," right? So we tried to come up with a system that would allow projects in the crypto space to be able to access external markets without all of that friction, which ultimately saves their treasury for more important things like development, right? So our hope is that if you look at how Rosen essentially works, it's like an airport network. Every time you add a node in that network or a new chain, you have all of the other destinations available. So, as Rosen spins up, it'll be point to point, but as new chains are supported, it opens up kind of the viability of multiple ecosystems, which grows in power as Rosen evolves. Let's see.
I think I agree, Joe. Like, it would be good to not be beholden to any centralized exchange. They're kind of a necessary evil at the moment in blockchain, but really they're not an ideal solution to exchanging tokens. So if we can circumvent their sort of control at the moment, it would be a great thing for everyone involved.
Yeah, they occupy one thing that's unique, right? And essentially what they do is they sit in this middle ground between legacy systems and blockchain. And so they'll facilitate transfers between, whatever your banking system is to access crypto assets. But in terms of that position, it definitely is something where, I can question like the purpose of some exchanges. If they don't have, fiat rails, then usually either they have no KYC, which, offers users a certain benefit, or they have some degen leverage that maybe is covered or maybe not. It's hard to say, right? It's I don't know. It's a mixed bag. There's a lot of exchanges out there. I can't say that I can advocate for any of them because I can't see inside any of them. I have no idea how they work. So, I'm not going to sit here and say, X exchange is good. Maybe they have a good history, right? But I can't see what's happening on the inside. So I have no idea. Anybody's guess.
Yeah. It works until it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. See, Wombo 22 for Marty. Could you provide some examples of DAOs that can use Paideia?
I think there's a lot of use cases for Paideia. The main one is just simply like, the basic DAO. People want to share a treasury and have votes on it so that, it's not, you don't give that to one person and hope that they act in the best interests of everyone who's involved. You let the group manage the group owned asset. So examples of that could be, if let's say there's a minimum investment for a certain investment, like you need 50 grand to invest in something. But I only want to put 10K in, as do 4 of my friends. We could all put our 10K into a treasury, and then we can vote on sort of how it's used. Or if that investment then yields a tokenized asset, we now have the tokenized asset in the treasury. And if we decide to sell it as a group based on votes, we could sell it as a group, and we don't have to trust one individual. This kind of thing allows multiple individuals who don't necessarily even trust each other to manage something that they own together. So the other example would be like the Rosen Bridge group could use it to manage shared assets. Even though we're different people all over the world and we don't always agree, it would be, they could put the shared funding on the DAO management software and manage it that way. I think there was another one where people would buy, what was that game, Axie Infinity? People would buy assets together because the assets got quite expensive, and one person would play for 8 hours and then they'd pass the Axie to the next person and they'd play for 8 hours. If you could put your Axies on a DAO and the income from using them would go into the DAO, you could vote that way. And I think there will be a lot of emergent use cases. And there's more summaries on the website as well.
What about non-treasury or income-based? Just a group of people looking to make decentralized, trustless decisions.
That works too. I mean, you don't have to have money involved in a vote. You can just have a vote that's on chain, and that way at least know that the vote is handled in a decentralized way. It's not like you don't take a box on a Google Sheet and have somebody just tally those up, right? Like it's actually done on chain. So that's another way it can be done, is sort of fair voting. I mean, you can see if there's manipulation because every vote is passed through the blockchain, and that's a public ledger. So
yeah, I think there's a lot of social use cases that haven't been explored too, like Ergo Poker League. You know what I mean? How do you pay out the winner? How do you know? There's a lot of, even really basic things like that where Paideia could be quite useful. Let's see. All right, question for QX. Is there a forum now for the community to propose and use the SIG's treasury? What sort of proposals would these SIGs entertain?
No, not necessarily a place to talk about it as far as that goes. I mean, that's a great point. No, there should be. I know Mark just put up some using ergoplatform.org, the forums, a forum for Twitter advertisement and those kind of things. So there's a chat you can do for that and join in that discussion. If you want that link, ping us. So there's already some, I'm scrolling through it right now. There's already some chats about how to spend the treasury necessarily on Twitter advertisements. And we just actually ran a test ad last night for we picked Rosen Bridge just as a test to see how that would do, targeting some Cardano hashtag people, just reminding them what Rosen does and what it brings to Cardano. So that was a little bit of, not treasury spend actually, because that was out of my own pay, and Mahatma's donated some money as well. But that seemed to work pretty well. We got, in 24 hours, we got 60,000 impressions with about 200 click-throughs to either the Sigma Verse.io website showing everything on the ecosystem or the Rosen Bridge website. So that's something that we're poking around and testing. But by all means, head to the our Ask and Chat for the forum and start chatting about that. But no, we haven't publicly done anything other than specifically look at Twitter right now for spending on that. But we're open to all that kind of stuff, you know. And once again, the barrier of entry for SigCan to join this group is, you know, are you breathing? Can you type? Are you interested? Essentially, just ping us in chat, or if you don't want to talk to people to get sponsored to jump right in, you can fill out the form on sigmanauts.com, and we vote on it at the end of the month, which is today or tomorrow, this weekend, to bring people in every month. So yeah, I encourage you guys all to jump in and join that discussion. We have about you know, I think I just went to Corecta Finance, not Corecta, Crux Finance 2 days ago, and typed in the SIG's treasury wallet into Crux Finance, and it calculated that we have about $30,000 worth. I think mainly because THD just almost doubled in price recently, and we have 4 million of those tokens. So there's 4 million THD tokens, a bunch of SPF tokens as well for that donation, and about 3,700 ERG. So combined, that's about 30K. So yeah, hop in, join the discussion, steer us, take over, do whatever the hell you want. That's what SIGs is for, a community run on a community chain. Please.
Awesome. All right, next is DigDug008. Do you think a part of the reason there hasn't been broader adoption of Ergo's capabilities has to do with the barrier of entry for normies? Click, exe, install, play, Linux, CMDS. I think that's always some barrier of entry, right? But I also think that there is a ton of traffic in this crypto space of people who don't do anything but speculate and shitpost. That's just like straight honesty, right? Where I've seen it on Twitter where it's like, oh, you know, I'm the, you know, decentralized systems expert. It's like, okay, great. What's your node specs? Like, where are you? Are you actually a peer in these networks, or are you just like a degen investor, right? The truth is there's a lot of people that will never touch the tech. They just want to gamble. They want price action, speculation. Like that, I don't think we'll ever see like broader adoption in terms of use case unless there's some speculative aspect to draw them in. So in terms of like the local host side, you'll have people that will dive into crypto and say, well, why do these systems matter? How do they work? Why is decentralization important? But they, you know, peer-to-peer network is not talking about like friend to friend. You know what I mean? It's not talking Twitter to Twitter. That's not like the design and the intent of the word peer in these systems. And I think that's something we just have to say that's the reality. Like you have people that will run infrastructure and participate and make the network resilient. You'll have people that will use and play, which is awesome. And then you'll have people that won't do anything and will just speculate, and that's always going to happen. So I think that depending on like which of those three, like network peer, someone who, you know, plays and is curious, and someone who just wants to speculate, it depends where they are on that spectrum.
Yeah, I think that the takeaway I do, at least with the school of thought I'm from, is that systems of design will bend to whatever the users want them to bend to. So no matter what you design or what you have in mind for how it should run, users will find a way to utilize it the way they want to. As you're saying, Joe, with the speculators and the people jumping on 100% for price and profit and gain. So that's going to happen. And if our system can be used for that, then there's nothing stopping them. That's what it's,
I think it'll grow as well as we get more apps launched, and as Rosen Bridge launches, it makes it more accessible. But people who don't care about the tech need things to do, and so we'll have to see more dApps be launched to see more adoption of Ergo. The tech is there, but it's not always fully utilized by the dApps yet, so that'll come.
Looks like our next question/comment is Louis Vatra says, only people that are high watch this. Looks like Paideia is going to be delayed, Marty.
Yeah. What is it? It's like 3 p.m. for Louis, and he's already high, half-baked. Oh, man, we're in trouble.
All right, looks like next we got...
There needs to be a maybe button in Paideia all over the place. A yes, no, and a maybe. Or I'll get to it.
All right, next one. Do you think the aggressive emission decrease could be a problem if mining becomes less profitable than it is now? Sure, in theory. But, proof of work is also a self-balancing system, right? So if mining becomes less profitable, don't mine, or mine something else and, move the asset from what you mine into what you want to hold if you're a miner. It is true that... if you look at like storage rent, this idea of demurrage, Ergo has a pretty aggressive emission, and that's something that we need to be aware of and develop tools to, assist support. I think that's certainly one of the challenges of the network. But the truth is, if you look at most emissions, it's always like next generation's problem. Right. And that's the number one problem with monetary policy in this world is we're like, we're $30 trillion in debt. What are we going to do? I don't fucking know. Let the next generation figure it out. Right. What is Bitcoin going to do with their emission? That's going to be a problem at some point. Most crypto assets actually do not have long-term economic security. They just don't. They say, well, we'll figure it out when we get there. So I would say at least Ergo is, moving towards that target at a rapid clip and has a plan in motion to create sustainability in terms of like the economic viability of the protocol. And in most cases, that's not something that they even talk about. They just model it out to where they don't need to for a while. But, how many people that are involved or active are going to be around once that day comes. So I'd say instead of kicking the can down the road, it's better to try to figure it out initially, because if it's something that you get right, that's a powerful thing. All right. Where are we?
So many good questions you can't decide, Joe.
Yeah, I got one from Luca that's like all out.
Oh yeah, anyway. That's a good one. Yeah.
Any thoughts on how self-insurance could be done on Ergo? That's a broad question. The simplest is when you have like a small group of actors, you usually have to require a lot of collateral, right? If you can build out the actor set and you're talking about insurance, then more is possible, right? But it also depends on, let's say what the redemption or call on that insurance contract is going to be. I would say even if you look at like, the auto insurance, home insurance, right? You usually have a huge pool of people that are paying into it. And even then it's not always profitable, right? So insurance is always a It's a hard. You're shooting at a moving target. It's the only thing I can say. It's profitable until it's not.
You also, with that involved, there needs to be some sort of intermediate that makes a decision of whether something is claimable or not in that instance. I mean, it'd be amazing to have some sort of trustless automated system, smart contract that allows pay in and payouts. But how do you take away that? That's a tough middleman to take away in that aspect of who gets what.
Yeah, I tend to think that like the only way you could really do that would be through like the continuous accumulation of fees or over collateralization. Like you have to build some insurance pot or pool that's continually being, seeing inflows is probably more viable than being over collateralized. But I don't know. Depends what you're insuring. Depends what the risk parameters are.
You could start off simple with something that guarantees it could take out the middleman by essentially guaranteeing a full a percentage of payout on an event. So essentially, if people pay into something that's a certain amount every month or whatever, and that was then used to accumulate more funds somewhere else as well. So that grew with time, and then a percentage of that could be paid out to all users affected, or a subset of users affected based on also reading something on the chain that happened. So essentially it could stay on chain and you could make it trustless and automated as far as that goes. I'm being very generic here, but think of having insurance for some sort of investment somewhere. So you pay insurance into both pools if it goes down, depending on the investment, and then it could be read on chain about whether that does go down or whether that does pay off for that kind of thing. So insurance on options, or you could build something like that with option calls.
The hardest thing there is that usually you have to quantify risk and then adjust based on the risk, and that's very hard to do. And I don't know, it's hard to do on chain. I haven't seen it done meaningfully, but certainly like a multi-billion-dollar question to tackle, I guess. See, it looks like we're about 10 minutes overtime.
We started about 15 late, Joe.
Okay. All right. Let me leave you. What's the next one? There is a KYC requirement for the transactions we'll have to make on the platform. What documents are required for KYC? If any, finally, what are the transactions you can do without KYC? There is one thing that's required, and that's your private key. Don't share that with anybody. Let's see. Although sometimes, some people get a little weird, join the chat and they say, papers, please. It's Telegram.
Do you guys want to talk about the regulatory kerfuffle and Charles' rant against Bitcoin maxis?
Sure. Where's that question?
Or am I skipping somebody? Am I skipping another good one?
I don't know. Pull it up. Let's see the question.
That one was Ursa Minor 2010.
It's like 10 up from the bottom, Joe. Not even like 7 up from the bottom.
All right, give me a minute.
If we have time, there's also one about the security assumptions on Rosen. Thought that was a good one too.
Marty, what is your take on the regulatory kerfluffle and Charles' rant about BTC maxis? Is ADA a security? Is it a commodity? Is Ergo? Is there a difference between money and commodity?
What do you guys think?
Well, it's your name, Marty. You got to go first.
Yeah. Marty, are you sure you're not Ursa Minor? You typed that question to yourself? Take it away.
I think Charles loves to give rants, and it gets people talking about stuff. So I think it's effective and it works, and it brings attention to ADA, which in turn can bring a bit of attention to Ergo, since we're kind of building on both. So I don't know. What's
the backstory, Marty? The lawsuit named ADA as a security in it. One of the paragraphs, was that it?
But just recently, Charles went on a big rant about that, and he was cursing at the Securities and Exchange Commission and going off on, why is Cardano a security? Why isn't Bitcoin? And he actually claimed that they did not do an ICO, although I think that's untrue. I think they did an ICO in Japan. I'm pretty sure that's a fact, but I still think that the SEC is just throwing darts at a dartboard and trying to gather as much money as they can. And Gary Gensler may be a puppet for some greater forces at play, but I don't know. Is ADA a security? Even if ADA was considered a security, what difference would it make? Because it's not really a centralized entity. So who are they going to fine? If they fine IOHK, that won't change anything. ADA will still be ADA. And that's sort of the test is your cryptocurrency decentralized enough that it's resistant to actors such as the SEC coming for you? I think the market is going to react to something like that, and the price is going to have an impact. But I think that's just the market being the market, and people making emotional decisions rather than thinking about the facts. The facts are, ADA is probably one of the most decentralized cryptocurrencies because of how they've set up their proof of stake. It also tends to be a plutocracy in some ways, but it definitely behaves much more like a cryptocurrency than some of the others. And what Charles said about Bitcoin having, three groups that you can subpoena to take down the network, there's some truth to that. There are three major mining pools, and if you impact one of them, you will have an impact on the Bitcoin network. But then why wouldn't the hash just go somewhere else? So the fact remains that if you have a cryptocurrency that's sufficiently decentralized, it doesn't matter what the SEC does or what they say or how Gary Gensler thinks or what lawsuits they throw at you. As long as you don't have a centralized entity in control, you're okay. So that's my take on the whole thing. Charles, I like when he yells and gets all upset because it gets people talking and it brings attention to Cardano. So that's my take.
What do you think, UX?
I used to watch Charles a lot back in the days of my early ADA Cardano investments, and it was always inspiring to watch him. Just when you feel some bear market blues, you hop on, you listen to Charles rant, you gain a little more guster and fortitude in your conviction. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have much to say on that, but just because I haven't followed it too much, too busy with Ergo. But what you were speaking about actually brings up a good point. It would be interesting if there could be a name or a word or a ranking system to be able to not quickly but efficiently apply to a chain to say, look, if these central entities, like let's say EF went away tomorrow, let's say Kushti decided he didn't like Ergo anymore and was moving on to Fairgo or whatever, or something else. How would that affect the network? So it'd be nice to be able to have a framework there to be able to put over top of Cardano, put over top of Bitcoin, put over top of Caspa or whatever, Solana, and say, what ranking do you have there that says, how decentralized you truly, really are? And then we could have a number to display that. I think that'd be really, does that exist somewhere? Am I missing that? Or
no, because there's a ton of complexity that gets buried.
I know it'd be really difficult. That's for sure.
There's a ton of complexity there that generally people don't even look at. Miners would mine, so the network would be fine. But then you can say, okay, well, what about mining pools, right? Well, usually mining pools are not running like one server, right? They're running redundant servers all around the world. So then usually each site has its own little operator because, well, you have server distribution, right? Some of them are cloud hosted. Some of them are more, metal. So even, pool, their backend may not be the same as another pool to where, one person might have a lot more reach or influence than another. There's a lot of complexity there. But I do think at the end of the day, the question Marty brought up is the only thing that matters. Like the cool thing about Bitcoin has always been that governments and regulatory bodies did not understand how they could stop it. they said, wait a second, even if we were to somehow knock out all the miners, if there's a node out there that has the whole history that comes back online, guess what? This thing, we can't kill this thing. Right. And ultimately, I think that's the real question that communities should focus on is, how do you make your network unstoppable, unkillable to where, worst case, I don't know, we have massive disruption in internet service and, regulatory, crackdown. How hard of an environment could your network survive in? Because the truth is, we have these crypto networks that they were spun out in sunny days, right? I think there's a lot of stuff out there with very, very weak assumptions in an actual hostile environment. And, I love the part of crypto that focuses on that type of resiliency, right? Hey, how do we mine through Thor? Or, how do we do all kinds of interesting things that make the network more resilient? How do we run a full node on a smartphone, right? How could we package that into an application to where, people are running, nodes and it has minimal requirements they don't even know, and it makes the network more survivable. But, when you're talking about what's your regulatory classification, usually that has to do with the number go upside more than the actual technical resilience approach. So I think ultimately that's what's more important at the end of the day.
And the cool thing about Ergo is that I know for a fact, and through doing it, that if something happens somewhere, I can spin up a node within a couple minutes. I can install Stratum, and even if I want to go beyond installing Stratum and install Mining Core, I can do that and invite my buddies to mine with me immediately. Within half a day, I can have that set up and running and continue on the network. So,
yeah, that type of resiliency matters. And the truth is, how much? Again, I go back to the question we had earlier. How much of the people that are spouting off at the mouth talking shit don't run anything? They're talking about the number go up.
They run their mouths, Joe.
Yeah,
it's really easy to talk.
Yeah, I'm sure there's even
effort
out there that they're not even running their own node. They just own some Bitcoin, and they're like, we're going to the moon. And so, if they can, kneecap everybody on a regulatory side, it helps them in terms of their financial venture. Has nothing to do with resiliency or peer-to-peer networks or technology. It's just their bottom line. And, the truth is, if that's going to be the focus of this industry, just people's bottom line, we're never going to create, really neat stuff long-term. We're never going to disrupt anything because that's kind of how the world already is structured. So I don't know. I see it. There's always some noise and drama in the crypto space is what it is. I always say build for war, right? I've said that across socials forever. And that's why I think that's what's important. So the SEC can try, and hopefully we're, productive little mice with plan B and plan C, and, QX can run his own stuff locally, and Marty can run his own stuff locally, and I can run my own stuff locally, and everything's open source and it can be shared across the internet, and good luck stopping us.
Yep.
Exactly. That's the whole point.
Yep.
I think that's a good place to end it, Joe.
All right, everybody. I'm glad my backup camera worked. Nice to be back on the AMA. Pleasure to have you here, Marty, QX.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, Marty.
Yeah, appreciate it. And thank you, everyone who listened. That was, I appreciate those questions.
Where can they find you, Marty? Are you in all of the 8 chats of the 8 projects you're in?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, come in the Paideia chat or the ErgoPad chat or Crux. We're there. We're answering questions, and we want that constructive feedback. So if you've got something to say about how we're doing things wrong, tell us, because that's the only way we can improve.
And tell Louis early in case he's high by the afternoon.
Louis loves it when you ask him when Paideia.
Yep.
Every time I ask him, he just says, "Sir, this is a Wendy's."
Have a
All
great
right,
day, everybody.
Have a good one.
See you, everybody.